A group of people, armed and ready to engage in battle, stand before a giant menacing dragon. The dragon taunts them, saying foolish humans could never defeat him. But the determination in their eyes remains unchanged. 10 years ago, an ominous black fog spread across the land, tainting the world and making it inhabitable for any living creature. The world became a shadow world that resulted in countless deaths. To save the world, 150 million mages entered the Shadow Labyrinth to clear it, but only 6 remain. The remaining mages finally defeat the dungeon boss, Boromir Napolitan. After the battle, the 6 reflect on their adventure, especially paying their gratitude to Desir, without whom victory would have been impossible. He sealed away the dragon's immensely powerful spells, allowing them to close in and fight on equal footing. They share their plans for when they return home. However, the dragon's heart suddenly explodes, releasing the tremendous amount of mana it stored to destroy the world and kill the remaining mages. One of the last 6, Desir Herman, finds himself returning 13 years into the past, right before the Hebrion Academy entrance ceremony. Brigitte, a professor at the school, explains the entrance exam and its objectives: to clear a pseudo-shadow world created for the sole purpose of the test. Realizing that he's reliving the events, Desir wrestles with despair as all of his struggles and sacrifices are rendered pointless. In the school's courtyard, Desir is approached by his mentor, the second-year student and fire mage, Ladoria Dorish, who brings him to the test area. The Hebrion Academy has a discriminatory practice of putting all nobles in the Alpha class and commoners in the Beta class, regardless of their test results, and those in the Beta class are not properly educated. After passing by Elheim Trakini, a second-year Alpha class student whom Ladoria despises, they throw snarky remarks at each other while Desir stands and watches. Desir arrives at the test area where he meets Romantica Ito, a comrade who died in the previous timeline. Seeing her, he resolves to not let the tragedy repeat itself and to rewrite history. Ladoria briefs Desir about the details of the test. Being in Group D, Desir will have to compete in a race in the Ernstein Plains located at the beginner level of the Shadow World. She reassures him that the test is safe and no actual danger is posed to the students, as the artificial Shadow World was made only to test their ability to fight, with checks in place to avoid fatal injuries. Before the test, Elheim introduces Desir to the student he's mentoring, Azest Kingscrown, who delivered the final strike on Napolitan in the previous timeline. The test begins as Desir, Romantica, Azest, and 3 other applicants enter the artificial shadow world, in which the objective is to be one of the first 3 to cross the goal using any means necessary. The rules are simple: only the top 3 will qualify, and if anyone sustains fatal injuries, they'll be immediately disqualified. Standing at the starting line, Desir wonders if Azest has memories from the past like he does. The test begins with Azest running towards the goal, leaving wind in her wake. Meanwhile, Desir and Romantica team up to take out one of the other 3 applicants after the applicant nearly hits Romantica with his attack. Azest takes the overwhelming lead while the other 2 applicants run behind her. Knowing that they'll be left behind, Romantica uses her magic to cast a wind spell named Arrow Sweep that ends up fatally wounding and disqualifying 2 other applicants. Azest, however, simply cuts through the wind undeterred. Romantica, having showcased this spell of incredible power, demands Desir to drop out and leave, but he refuses. Shocked by the audacity, Romantica then engages in a battle with Desir. Despite casting some powerful wind spells, Desir counters them all with inverse spells, much to Romantica's frustration. Desir then casts a fireball spell on himself to catapult him into Azest's location. Desir uses inverse spells again to defeat Azest and cross the goal first. Azest then crosses second, while Romantica crosses the goal to finish third and pass the test. The Academy faculty and staff assemble to discuss placement, and with an air of arrogance, they relish the fact that no commoner was placed into the Alpha class. They add that the Alpha class is only for the chosen mages, and that the commoners should be grateful they're even being admitted at all. Despite their stance on relegating all commoners to the Beta class, Brigitte recommends Desir to be placed in the Alpha class. The results are released, and for now, both Desir and Romantica are placed in the Beta class. Romantica is surprised to find herself in the Beta class despite her aptitude being more than enough to be in the Alpha class. And to top it off, she's beyond annoyed to be in the same class as Desir. After her first day in class, Romantica is invited by the Alpha class student Donetta Hadun to join his party, but is hesitant to join when Donetta requires her to go on a date. Afterward, Desir approaches Romantica with a request to join his party, and leaves her with a letter to read in private. Later in the day, Desir watches another Beta class student, Pram Schneiser, another comrade Desir fought with, have a sparring match with the Alpha student Percival Assenguitz. Pram was one of the fastest swordsmen in the previous timeline, and Desir believes now that with enough practice, he could be even stronger than before. While Pram is known for his fast strikes with his sword, he uses a heavy sword in the match and loses. After the match, Desir and Romantica talk in private regarding the letter, and Desir reveals that Romantica's parents bought the nobility title from a merchant, and despite her skills, the administration is well aware of her commoner origins, hence her placement in the Beta class. With Desir having formed a party with Pram and Romantica determined to be in the same party as Pram, Romantica joins Desir's party. In a nightmare, Pram sees visions of his mother and the rapier she passed on to him. She advised him to hold that rapier close to him as it belonged to his father. Though it was supposed to be a sign of love, the rapier disintegrates in his hands, causing him to wake up screaming. Desir, Romantica, and Pram meet with Brigitte to officially form a party, with Brigitte serving as the party's advisor. Desir explains that he plans to get promoted to the Alpha class by getting the top 9 of the ranking tournament, which has never been accomplished by a Beta student in the tournament's history. She explains the tournament to the clueless Pram, adding that a party must have 6 members to be eligible for the tournament. It entails a match between 2 parties, and individuals are assessed based on their skills and contribution to victory. The parties that qualify take part in the final round that is held inside the Shadow World. Brigitte approves the party with her blessing, as she hopes to reform the Academy's discriminatory system. Afterward, Desir cleans up the rat-infested training room assigned to the party, which is completely different from the other rooms and facilities the Alpha parties have access to. Romantica begins training by improving her magic accuracy. Remembering how skilled Romantica is in the other timeline, Desir is determined to push her to be even stronger. Meanwhile, Desir tells Pram that there's nothing he can teach him, knowing that getting him to wield a rapier instead of a heavy sword is the key. Pram shows Desir a rapier his father passed to him that explains his background, having been born to a noble father and a commoner mother. Wanting to impress his father that he never knew, Pram trained with the rapier, but his mother passed away, and with her last words, told Pram to stay away from his father. Afterwards, Pram enrolled at Hebrion to find his father, knowing that several nobles attend the school. 3 days later, Romantica improves her magical accuracy, while Pram continues to train with a heavy sword, having sold his rapier out of disgust for his father. Pram brings Desir to the shop he sold his rapier to buy it back. The shop owner, cunning and greedy, increases the price of the sword, saying that it has no value as a sword, but it is a special item called Kemuvin. Used as a gift among the nobility for their lovers, the shop owner has no clue how to unsheath the sword. Desir ends up paying 40 silver coins for it after Pram sold it for 3. With Desir using his magic to figure out how to unsheath it, he gives it to Pram to unsheath, learning that the sword is made of blancium, a rare metal that is powerful and lightweight. Despite already agreeing to sell the sword, the shop owner demands Pram to return the rapier. As such, Pram fights the shop's bodyguard in a duel. With a shine in his eyes, he uses his speed to unleash a flurry of attacks. However, as an inexperienced swordsman, Pram's cuts are shallow and he's knocked around as his moves are easy to read. He regains his footing and is able to quickly react, knocking the bodyguard out. The shop owner tries to give them more trouble, saying that the door can only be opened by the bodyguard they knocked out. Pram slashes through the door with ease, and the duo gets out of the shop. Seeing Desir's kindness and the fact that he considered him a friend, Pram's resolve strengthens as he finds a purpose to fight for his friend. Meanwhile, Romantica completes the training exercise. She has a dinner with Donetta and rejects his offer to join, telling him that she was once a commoner. She leaves with just a warning for Donetta not to look down on commoners, and Donetta reacts angrily, as it's revealed that his father was executed in a rebellion organized by commoners. The tournament begins, and Desir's party makes the final round of the ranking tournament in dominating fashion, swiftly rising through the ranks in the process. Their performance was so phenomenal that an article about them gets published. While Professor Brigitte looks at them with pride, she's aware that they're now all in the crosshairs of the elitist professors. Outraged by the party's success, Professor Fergman calls Blue Moon, the top-ranked party at Hebrion, led by Azest and advised by Fergman, instructing them to use any means necessary to eliminate that commoner team. He specifically asks Azest if she's capable of winning against Desir, who confidently answers in the affirmative. After the meeting, fellow party members Donetta and Percival, holding grudges, approach Azest demanding that they be permitted to defeat Romantica and Pram, respectively. Azest agrees with the condition that nobody interferes between her and Desir, as she wants to settle the score of her previous defeat. In preparation for the final round, Desir's party studies history at the school's library as the Shadow World recreates historical incidents. Desir claims that he picked certain historical events at random, but in reality, from his memory of the previous timeline, he knows exactly which scenario they'll face. While they study, Azest approaches Desir to declare war as a courtesy, since she considers him her rival. Turns out that Desir engaged Azest in combat with such intensity at the entrance ceremony to motivate her to get as strong as possible. The day of the final round arrives, with the parties battling each other to clear the artificial Shadow World. The final round begins, and Desir is ambushed by a female ice mage from the Blue Moon party, tasked to eliminate him. Despite her impressive ability to cast 2 spells at once, Desir exposes her inability to control her magic and uses an inversion spell to defeat her with her own magic, making her the first of 30 students to be eliminated. Romantica and Pram defeat a clueless participant who had his guard down. Using detection magic, they find another imminent threat nearby, giving away their position in the process. With their teamwork, they take out 2 participants who found their location. Afterward, Desir finds Romantica and Pram, and the party is together once again. With 18 participants remaining, the party plots their course of action, as Desir decides that their chances of getting promoted are better if they're among the last 9 remaining rather than clearing the Shadow World. The previous clock tower, a high-level magic device, rings and summons magical beasts into the Shadow World, triggering a survival quest. The remaining participants are attacked by a pack of Kildra mice. They feed on human blood and pursue their targets relentlessly. Desir's party runs away, needing to defeat only the leader that Desir draws out with his blood. Romantica attacks it with her magic, but fails to kill it due to its high magic resistance. Pram recklessly goes into the pack to defeat the leader. Struggling to find the leader, Pram finally spots it and immediately sets his target. He succeeds after an exhausting battle to clear the survival quest, but passes out. The party rests while Desir recomposes himself after Pram went against his orders to retreat, punching himself for putting his friends in harm's way again. The other parties clear their survival quests, with a member of Blue Moon being the only casualty. The parties head towards the previous clock tower, where a battle royale awaits. Romantica launches a sneak attack from inside the clock tower to eliminate 2 members of Blue Moon, leaving them only with Azest, Donetta, and Percival. And then there are 2 members of the Pine Tree party, leaving 13 participants left. The Blue Moon, Red Dragon, and Pine Tree parties meet up at the clock tower entrance and begin fighting each other, as Desir had set up a trap hoping that the remaining competitors would eliminate each other through friendly fire to get themselves into the top 9. But Azest figured out the plan. Azest takes on both parties herself and immobilizes the competitors without eliminating them, forcing Desir's party to have to defeat Blue Moon in order to get promoted to Alpha. The parties have their promised one-on-one battles as Desir fights Azest, Romantica fights Donetta, and Pram fights Percival. Romantica gets the upper hand on Donetta due to the fog, but Donetta disperses it with his artifact. Donetta becomes enraged when Romantica tells him that they're alike despite their status. Donetta overwhelms Romantica with his artifact, and Pram covers for Romantica as Donetta tells Percival to stay out of the fight. Taking advantage of a blind spot caused by Donetta's focus on Romantica, Pram dislodges the artifact. Pram and Romantica decide that they'll take on this battle with Donetta and Percival together. Meanwhile, Desir and Azest fight on the floor above, both going all out, as the only way to victory is defeating the other. Desir asks Azest if she's having fun, and frustrated by her inability to defeat Desir, despite her superior strength and skills, she launches a relentless assault, one powerful strike followed by another. To her dismay, Desir can still keep up and guard against her attacks. Looking back at the Azest from the previous timeline, Desir knows that she never faced a worthy opponent, and as a result grew incredibly bored. He fights her knowing that she'll have fun in this challenging battle. As her frustration reaches the limit, she unleashes her ultimate spell, Frozen Throne. Using vision magic, Azest creates a barrier of ice where she can wield her magic without limitations. But Desir inverses her magic circles, prompting Azest to push past her limits. She imbues her sword with her magic, unlocking the magic sword that usually takes a decade to master, making it look like child's play. Meanwhile, Donetta and Percival attack Romantica and Pram with a pincer attack, but Romantica defeats both of them with her wind magic. As Azest attacks Desir with her magic sword, she completely overwhelms him. Breaking through his dagger, she has her sword to his neck and victory in her grasp. To her shock, Desir uses inversion on the clock tower to sever its magical power and clear the shadow world to win the tournament before she can land the final blow. Afterwards, Fergman throws a tantrum in front of the professors and accuses Brigitte of cheating, but has no proof. The next day, Desir explains his strategy to Azest in that the initial plan was to have the Alpha students eliminate each other that Azest figured out. But it also allowed him to analyze the clock tower spell, as he couldn't exactly do it with all the Alpha students attacking him. As it stood, he was barely able to analyze it with only Azest around. Desir, Romantica, and Pram go to Brigitte's office as she celebrates the party's promotion to Alpha class with an exclusive cake. Brigitte reflects on how strong Desir has gotten, as it's revealed that she taught Desir how to use magic. Meanwhile, Fergman is plotting his revenge. During the school break, Desir's party goes shopping at a mall for a day of fun. Desir runs into Azest at the mall and the four play a game of air hockey. Azest's competitiveness takes over, leading her to use her ice magic that Desir inverses. The next day, the new term begins with Desir's party starting their first day in Alpha class, with their usual morning practice with Azest joining them. Following the lecture taught by Professor Prelude, Desir approaches her with a request for the party to be dispatched to the Horelli branch of the magical tower to guard the tier of Regernel, knowing that in 10 hours a rebel group called the Outers will come to steal it. After initially refusing, Prelude agrees to the request. Meanwhile, at the magical tower headquarters, Zod Exarian, the inventor of the technology to use magic gems, receives the request and is surprised to see that Desir's party is being sent to the Horelli branch. A poor person carrying a bag of bread bumps into Kriken, the leader of the Outers, in Horelli, and Kriken spoils the bread after warning him to be careful going out at night. Kriken leads the army of Outers to the gate, where they breach it with a combined magic and sword attack, knowing that the barrier can only withstand one type of attack at a time. They're greeted by an army of soldiers and a full-on fight breaks out. After seeing that they're wearing strong armor, Kriken and his henchmen use an invisibility spell to sneak into the room where the tier of Regerni is located. Kriken then uses his earth magic to dispel the security, but he and his henchmen are met by Pram and Romantica. They take out most of Kriken's henchmen, but Kriken escapes with the tier. Kriken is met by Desir, who posed as that poor person, as by touching Kriken, he's able to track his mana. Desir and Kriken then engage in battle. Kriken launches a barrage of attacks, only for Desir to inverse all of them. Desir pins Kriken down with gravity control to take back the tier, baffling him that Desir can use mana from an unprocessed gem. Kriken counters by transforming into a magical beast. Kriken initially overwhelms Desir, but he inverses the magical beast spell as he needed time to analyze it because it's rarely used. Desir uses the tier to cast a powerful fireball spell to defeat Kriken. The next day, Desir meets Zod and has a chess match as his reward for defending the tier. During his match, Desir and Zod make a wager, with Desir showing his ability to power magical stones. Meanwhile, at Fergman's villa, Azest tells Fergman that she's leaving Blue Moon. Sometime later, back at school, Desir tells Romantica and Pram that in 13 days, a shadow world will appear, and he trained them hard to prepare for it. Romantica asks Desir about his secret of being a returner, but just as Desir was about to answer, Romantica stops him and decides she wants to find out herself. Afterwards, Azest joins Desir's party, and the four train hard for the upcoming Shadow World. 13 days later, the Shadow World appears, and Desir's party is deployed. And that's the end of the video. As always, if you liked what you saw, subscribe to the channel. I'll be uploading a lot of videos just like this, so I'll see you at the next one.